In this video, we will talk about history of Israel-Palestine conflict, so make sure to watch the full video. The Israel-Palestine conflict is one of the most enduring and complex disputes in modern history, with roots stretching back to the late 19th century. It centers on the competing national aspirations of Jews and Arabs in the historic region of Palestine. Over the past century, the conflict has been shaped by key events, including colonial mandates, wars, displacement, and failed peace efforts. Tensions escalated with the creation of Israel in 1948, leading to multiple wars and ongoing territorial disputes. Despite numerous attempts at peace, the conflict remains unresolved, affecting millions of lives and fueling regional instability. 1. The roots of Zionism and Jewish migration to Palestine. Late 19th century. In the late 19th century, European Jews faced widespread anti-Semitism, leading to the birth of Zionism, a nationalist movement advocating for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. Theodor Herzl, a key figure in Zionism, argued that Jews could only find safety through self-determination in a land of their own, with historical and religious ties pointing to Palestine. At this time, Palestine was under Ottoman control and was predominantly inhabited by Arab Muslims and Christians. Early waves of Jewish migration, aliyahs, to Palestine began in the 1880s, causing land disputes and tensions with the existing Arab population, who viewed the land as their own. 2. World War I and the Balfour Declaration. 1917. During World War I, Britain sought support from Jewish communities worldwide and made conflicting promises to both Arabs and Jews regarding the future of Palestine. In 1917, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour issued the Balfour Declaration, a letter that expressed British support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This declaration was pivotal in galvanizing Zionist efforts but also sowed seeds of discord. Palestinian Arabs, who had been promised independence by the British, felt betrayed, and tensions between Jews and Arabs in the region began to escalate, setting the stage for future conflict. 3. The British Mandate and growing tensions. 1920 to 1947. After World War I, Palestine was placed under British administration through the League of Nations mandate system. This period saw a significant increase in Jewish immigration to Palestine, driven by Zionist aspirations and worsening persecution in Europe. The Jewish population grew, leading to economic and land ownership changes that alarmed the Arab population. This period was marked by escalating violence, such as the Arab Revolt, 1936 to 1939, as Arabs resisted both British colonial rule and growing Jewish settlement. The British tried to mediate the conflict through commissions and proposals for partition, but neither side accepted the terms, deepening animosity. 4. The United Nations Partition Plan and the creation of Israel, 1947 to 1948. By 1947, with tensions between Jews and Arabs in Palestine at a breaking point and Britain unable to control the situation, the United Nations proposed a plan to partition Palestine into two states, one for Jews and one for Arabs, with Jerusalem under international control. The Jewish community accepted the plan, but Palestinian Arabs and surrounding Arab nations rejected it, viewing it as unfair. Following the UN's partition vote in 1947, fighting broke out between Jewish and Arab militias. In 1948, as the British Mandate ended, Jewish leaders declared the establishment of the State of Israel. The surrounding Arab nations immediately invaded, sparking the First Arab-Israeli War. 5. The Nakba and Palestinian refugees. 1948. The 1948 war resulted in a decisive victory for Israel, but it also marked a catastrophic turning point for Palestinians. During and after the conflict, over 700,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes, an event Palestinians refer to as the Nakba, or catastrophe. Many Palestinian villages were destroyed or depopulated, and the refugees fled to neighboring countries like Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. To this day, the refugee crisis remains unresolved, with millions of Palestinians and their descendants living in refugee camps and without a recognized right of return to their ancestral homes. The Nakba is a central event in Palestinian national identity and the ongoing conflict. 6. The Six-Day War and Israeli occupation, 1967 and 1967. Rising tensions between Israel and its Arab neighbors, particularly Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, led to the outbreak of the Six-Day War. Israel launched a preemptive strike and achieved a swift, decisive victory, capturing the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. The war significantly altered the geopolitical landscape, as Israel now controlled territories with large Palestinian populations. This military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza has since become one of the most contentious aspects of the conflict. Israeli settlements in these territories began shortly after, further fueling Palestinian resentment and resistance, and leading to international debates about the legality of the occupation. 7. The First Intifada and Oslo Accords, 1987 to 1993. By the late 1980s, Palestinians in the occupied territories grew increasingly frustrated with Israeli rule, leading to the outbreak of the First Intifada, or uprising, in 1987. It was characterized by widespread civil disobedience, protests, strikes, and violent clashes between Palestinian youths and the Israeli military. The Intifada brought the Palestinian cause to global attention and underscored the need for a political solution. In the early 1990s, peace efforts gained momentum, culminating in the Oslo Accords of 1993. The Accords established a framework for a two-state solution, with the Palestinian Authority gaining limited self-rule in parts of the West Bank and Gaza. While seen as a hopeful step, the Oslo process did not resolve core issues, including settlements, borders, and the status of Jerusalem. 8. The Second Intifada and its aftermath, 2000 to 2005. The collapse of peace talks at Camp David in 2000 and growing frustrations over the lack of progress on final status issues, like Israeli settlements and the status of Jerusalem, led to the outbreak of the Second Intifada, a far bloodier and more violent conflict than the first. Suicide bombings, Israeli military reprisals, and significant civilian casualties on both sides marked this period. The Intifada fundamentally changed the dynamics of the conflict, with Israel constructing a separation barrier in the West Bank and withdrawing from the Gaza Strip in 2005. While violence eventually subsided, trust between Israelis and Palestinians was deeply eroded, and prospects for peace diminished. 9. The rise of Hamas and Gaza conflicts, 2006. Present in 2006, Hamas, an Islamist militant group that opposes Israel's existence and rejects previous peace agreements, won a majority in Palestinian legislative elections. Following violent clashes with the Fatah Party, Hamas took control of the Gaza Strip in 2007. Since then, Gaza has been the site of repeated conflicts between Hamas and Israel, including major military operations in 2008-09, 2012, 2014, and subsequent years. These conflicts have been marked by rocket fire from Gaza, Israeli airstrikes, and heavy civilian casualties. Gaza remains under a strict Israeli blockade, and the humanitarian situation in the territory has continued to deteriorate, contributing to further instability. 10. The stalemate and ongoing peace efforts, 2010's present. Despite numerous attempts at peace, the Israel-Palestine conflict remains unresolved, with key issues such as borders, the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and Israeli settlements in the West Bank still deeply contentious. Diplomatic efforts, including initiatives by the United States and other international actors, have failed to achieve a lasting resolution. Meanwhile, Israeli settlement expansion and periodic violence between Israel and Gaza have further complicated prospects for peace. Both Israeli and Palestinian societies have become increasingly polarized, and the conflict remains one of the world's most intractable disputes, with no clear end. The Israel-Palestine conflict remains deeply entrenched, shaped by decades of historical grievances, territorial disputes, and failed peace efforts. Despite numerous attempts at negotiation, the core issues, such as borders, refugees, Jerusalem's status, and Israeli settlements, remain unresolved. Both sides continue to experience cycles of violence, political fragmentation, and growing mistrust. The humanitarian crisis, particularly in Gaza, worsens with each conflict, while international diplomacy struggles to break the deadlock. As the conflict persists, it continues to affect regional stability and global politics, with no clear resolution in sight, leaving millions to grapple with the consequences of a divided and turbulent land. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Also, subscribe to our channel before you go. Thank you for